Thank you, Madam Chairman. It is my privilege to present to the House for its consideration with my good friend from Georgia, Mr. Bishop, the year 2014 Appropriations Bill for Military Construction and Veterans Affairs. One of the most important obligations this Congress has is to ensure that our men and women in uniform have everything they need to do their job without worry. We think of ourselves on this subcommittee as the peace of mind committee for our military, so that they can focus on their mission, standing on the walls of Rome, protecting our freedom on far corners of the world, and not worry about the...
The gentleman is correct. The House is not in order. Members are advised to take their conversations outside of the chamber. The House is not in order. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think of all the appropriations bills we consider, we're honored to bring this one to the House first because of its importance to our men and women in uniform, to their families, to our veterans who have served our nation. We want to be sure, as I say, that they have no worries, that they don't ever have to look over their shoulder and be concerned that the United States Congress and the American people support them 110%, as we have done in this legislation, which my colleague from Georgia and I have drafted arm in arm. This is a bipartisan bill that we present to the House today to ensure that the military construction needs of the armed services are fully met. We have also done our best to ensure that when our men and women in uniform retire and move into the Veterans Affairs system, that they will have the best medical care possible, that this backlog that's been plaguing us for a number of years of disability claims will be cleared as rapidly as possible. And we've done this in a way that's also fiscally responsible. We have found every dollar we could that was left unspent from previous years and returned that to the taxpayers, at the same time making sure that our veterans and our men and women in uniform have everything that they need to do their job. Our committee has also been very committed to ensuring that their families are taken care of, that their Defense Department schools on bases are the best that they can be and in the best condition they can be, that they've got, I know all of us as parents are concerned about the quality of our kids' education. And the last thing, that a man or woman who's overseas, who's deployed at a base in the United States, has, we don't want them to worry about the caliber of the school that their children are attending. So we've also placed emphasis on the ability of our military-based commanders to contract with the state in which they're located to set up charter schools at their military bases if the base happens to be located in an area where the local schools can't provide the quality that they need. Now, we have in this appropriations bill, as I say, fully funded the Veterans Affairs, Department of Veterans Affairs. Some of this money is advance appropriated. So while we've got a total funding level in this bill for 2014 of $73.3 billion, that's $1.4 billion more than last year, and we provide an additional $2.1 billion more than last year for the Department of Veterans Affairs. But of that increase, $1.9 billion was provided as an advance appropriation from previous years. The Congress began several years ago to appropriate funding in advance for our Veterans Affairs Department, of course, to ensure that because of the uncertainty and unpredictability of the appropriation cycle, again, we want our men and women in uniform and our veterans to have absolute peace of mind and no worries as they serve our country or as they move into retirement in the Veterans Affairs, in the Veterans Hospital system. So we advance appropriate some of this money. Any reductions that we made in this bill, again, were done to make sure that we're doing our part to control spending at a time of record debt and deficit, which is top of our mind as fiscal conservatives. We want to ensure that we have done everything in our power to reduce the debt, to reduce the burden that is passed on to our children and grandchildren. So we have not provided funding in the bill for 10 military construction projects that the committee believed it lacked sufficient justification, and we funded only what the Department of Defense expects to spend in fiscal year 2014 for 6 military construction projects. We've also reduced the funding available for contingency construction account, which has not even been used since fiscal year 2008, and our marvelous staff did a good job in identifying $659 million in unobligated balances from previous years for construction projects that have been left unspent, and we're able to return that to taxpayers. Now, we have also reduced the Department of Veteran Affairs requests for funding in a program where they substantially overestimated their projections. Now, there's in the scope of this committee's jurisdiction, we also include military memorials and cemeteries. We've made sure that those are fully funded and that our memorials and cemeteries here in the United States and around the world are going to be well tended, and that veterans, no matter where they may be in the United States, will be able to get the health care and benefits that they have earned by their service to this country. We did everything we could in this bill to ensure that our men and women in uniform are taken care of, that our veterans are taken care of, but we are very concerned about the backlog and the disability claims that the VA has accumulated. The VA has promised us that they would have the backlog cleared up by the year 2015. So the bill contains very strong language. It holds the VA to account, ensuring that they will give the committee and the Congress detailed accounts and reports to ensure that they stay on target. Mr. Kingston of Georgia is going to offer an amendment later, which I intend to accept, to help ensure that the VA holds themselves to the standard that they have set for themselves to reduce the backlog. And then finally, Madam Chairman, I want to mention something that we're particularly exercised about, and our committee chairman, Hal Rogers from Kentucky, has told us a story that I have never forgotten, and of a young man I believe was wounded in Afghanistan, Iraq, who lost eyesight in one eye, and as he left the service to go into the VA system, and in order to save his remaining eye, he had to have medical records that could be read by the VA doctors. And because of the bureaucratic inefficiency and pure idiocy, we've got completely separate set of medical records in the DOD and the Veterans Administration. And for years, taxpayers have spent upwards of $1 billion or more over the last 10 years to get the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs operating in using a single unified medical record, so that when a young man like this moves out of active service and into the VA, when it's a time-critical surgery, such as this young man needed to have to save his eyesight, the doctors in the VA could read those medical records and get him the help that he needs. But sadly, because of bureaucratic inefficiency, refusal to cooperate, I think, and of course we're all human, we're all flawed, but there's this instinctive human, I think, reaction to, make sure you protect your own turf. Whatever it is, the VA and the DOD have not adopted a unified medical record, and as a result, this young man lost his eyesight. He could not get the surgery that he needed in the VA, and he is now permanently blinded as a result of the failure of these two departments to do their job. Now, the week before last, when we were considering this bill in committee, the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Hagel, said that the DOD was just going to go ahead and adopt their own medical record system, separate from the VA. Now, this is just unacceptable, and I ask all my colleagues in Congress to work with Mr. Bishop and I, to work with Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Lowy, with the members of the Veterans Affairs Committee, the members of the Armed Services Authorizing Committee, and the members of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, so that we develop identical, parallel language that compels the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs to come up with a single, integrated, unified medical record, so that no one will ever suffer the fate that this young man did, who is now permanently blinded because of bureaucratic inefficiency. It's unacceptable. The Congress won't stand for it any longer, and we've got strong language in this bill, and we'll continue to work to strengthen it to ensure that these men and women, as they move from their uniform, their days of uniform service to the country into the VA, that it is seamless, that it is easy, that they can get their disability claims handled in a timely and efficient manner, and that they can get their medical records read quickly and efficiently by the doctors in the VA system who do such a good job. We deeply appreciate our extraordinary staff working together with my good friend from Georgia, Mr. Bishop, in a truly bipartisan way. I'm proud to present to the House, Madam Chairman, the 2014 Military Construction and VA Appropriations Bill for approval by the House, a bill that is fiscally conservative and responsible, yet fully funds and takes care of our men and women in uniform and our veterans in the way that they deserve, because our men and women who have fought so valiantly for this country deserve nothing less than the very best of the United States Congress, and we've done that for them in this bill today. And I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman